G'day guys, hui dark and kia ora. My name is Wildkard. The greatest rivalry tour is underway with the Stormers versus the All Blacks. Boy, if you're an All Black fan, you're probably sweating bullets out there watching this game. Especially if you're looking at the schedule, you've got 4 games coming up within 2 weeks against the other clubs. This is going to be pretty tough gauntlet heading into the first test match for the All Blacks. But hey, one good thing that I think all the All Black fans can be a bit comforting is that this is not the best team, and when the bench came on, there was a definite lift to the performance of the team. A lot of the problems, like the scrum, the line-out, seems to be addressed once the bench came on. So yeah, you can probably take a bit of a solace in that. But still, there were so many little things that with the referee interpretation in this game that I want to talk about. So let's get on with it, right? So number one, the interpretation of the law of the Maul. There has been some adjustments to the law to the Maul. It was already in play in July Test series, so the players cannot go past where the ball is as a defender anymore, and also you cannot pull the Maul as a defender. So that's the problem here. What we saw here with the All Black defense here. So there were players swimming past and they have to detach, which they did correctly. But once you are in this position, you are not allowed to, like, see Simon Parker here. He's pulling the Maul. He's actually passed the ball and he's pulling the Maul. As a result of this, despite the fact that the referee deemed that this was a illegal try because the Maul detached and ran into a defender, Simon Parker was sent off for what he's doing right here. Pulling the Maul, holding the ball back whilst pulling. He is not allowed to do. He's not only allowed to push, and this pulling where he is the result of him getting a yellow card. So yeah, really interesting how that interpretation has changed because, according to this was changed recently. According to, we all know that teams used to be able to push and pull the team, try to, wiggle them towards a boundary, so to speak. Not allowed to do that anymore. Obviously, still not allowed to sack them all. And, it just makes them all a little bit harder to defend, in my opinion. Just make it a little bit harder to defend. Not 100% sure the idea of this. Maybe, just too much trying to tidy up the Maul a little bit to make it a little bit less messy. But this just makes them all, in my opinion, a bit harder to defend. Not allowed to pull. And that's what Simon Parker seemingly got caught by. But that's not another thing. Also, the scrummaging was quite a bit of a mess as well. We'll talk about the George Morby yellow card penalty try in a minute. But the scrum, in my opinion, the All Blacks, especially early on, Tossie got penalized a number of times for overextended and sort of pancaked in front of the scrum. But I do think that the South Africans actually looked at his positioning, the fact that he is a little bit overextended and in the engagement, right? His legs kind of, way past the 90 degree, so you sort of expect on the engagement. I feel like they pull back to bait him to get overextended. That's my interpretation. We can watch it right here. So especially with the elbow down, you can see the shoulder dropping. That's a sign that he's pulling back. Shoulder dropping and elbow down. But to be honest, he's done a really good job to not actually, despite him pulling down, he's done a really good job to be not actually touching the ground first with his own elbow. He's actually coiled back and prevented his own elbow from touching the ground, which is really, really good move. So he's not the first one to touch the ground and making Tossie the first one to pancake and getting the penalty. But the indicator for me is the dropping in the outside shoulder. If you watch closely again, the drop in the outside shoulder is what's causing the scrum to go down, not because Tossie was overextending. And I think that the referee Karl Dickson called a penalty against the All Blacks for this, pretty much for the entire first half. And if this is the game of the scrummaging, right? You can't really blame the referee if the referee is seeing something that he thinks is a certain way. You just have to deal with it and adjust. And I think the problem here is not to say that the All Blacks, this is the game, right? If South Africans got away with this, and they can just take advantage of it. It's just a great job from the coaching staff of the South Africans and how they're able to, exploit that. And I think it's the All Blacks' job at this point to adjust and not keep overextend. And I think that the failing to adjust here is probably the one thing that the coaches need to look at. They was fixed up in the second half, but there was still issues on the left on a different side now. Still a bit of issue there as well on the with the reserve as well on the loose air side. But there was like one scrum win for the All Blacks right at the end to kind of just to tidy everything up a little bit. But I think that's my interpretation there. You know, if you got away with it, you know, it's not, it's your job as losing team to either change the interpretation, you know, change the interpretation of the referee, or you know, you gotta make the adjustments so this doesn't happen again and again and again. But in my opinion, let me know your thoughts. I think that this is a very good job for the Stormers by pulling back, causing the collapse and getting the penalty call for themselves, which is a really smart move. Now, this final bit here, this is another thing where, so the referee's decision here, this was this was a penalty try to the Stormers, where let's just watch this whole thing in a bit of a slow motion here. So there was a little bit of break, right, and then there was a scramble for the tackle, and the try was prevented with George Morby laying across the try line, essentially holding the ball up. So the referee has deemed, so we'll watch this slowly. So Morby kind of, I thought this could be a high tackle, but the referee said that's fine because it didn't latch on. Or maybe because Morby felt like he could have got penalized for the high shot, he lets go. He lets go of the player, right? I thought he still has, you know, contact with the player here, so I think he's still has contact here. And then here, where he lets go of the player, he's basically put himself out of play. He's no longer allowed to make contact with the player anymore, especially to influence the player on the ground anymore. And then he re-wraps the player whilst he's on the ground and holds onto the ball and prevents the try. Now that, in my opinion, is the correct decision. There's a clear where he lets go of the player. I think if he had just held on to the player and just let the momentum roll the ball over on top of him, would have been fun. Would have been a perfect save. But the fact that he lets go and he readjusts to prevent the try readjust himself whilst on the ground, that is the illegal part. He is allowed to hold on whilst on the ground, you know, with the momentum, but he's not allowed to adjust himself and relatch onto the ball whilst on the ground. That's the bit where this was led to this penalty try. However, that's the referee decision. However, I do not agree with the referee decision for one part. The player, whilst the player holding onto the ball, is allowed to, when the momentum stops, is allowed to place the ball for the try, wherever direction he wishes to place. He's not allowed to roll and then place the ball. And that extra roll from the player made it that this was an illegal try, or like an illegal move to begin with. So I think I think that the penalty try is incorrect here because there's an illegal roll from the player. So if we watch this from the long shot, it's pretty clear. So this is a Gelant, Warwick Gelant from the Stormers. So he gets tackles. So he's sliding. This momentum. The momentum, you can see that he's facing his team and he's on the ground. Right. So the momentum is carrying him sliding with his face towards his own try line. And as here, you can see that he's lost momentum, and you can see he swung his leg over to roll himself over for the try. That is not allowed. That is an extra movement. I know sometimes we see this a lot. Like sometimes we see players get tackled and they roll on the ground from the tackle, and the referee does not call it. And that's just you know, it's just the way that the game is interpreted. But technically in the law book, you're not allowed to do an extra roll. A lot of times the referee don't call it, like especially if it's inconsequential, like in the middle of the field, players get tackled, they do an extra roll just to make the jackal a little bit more difficult for the opposition. By the books, that's not allowed, but the referee basically never calls it, very rarely calls it. So, but in this situation, when the try is at stake, the referee should have caught that. That extra roll, that is not or just watch this again. That extra roll is not part of the momentum. Where he's facing down. He's facing down right here. If he just kept on sliding and then stopped against the try line and then he placed the ball over his head or something, perfectly fine. Try, no problem. But the fact is, he gets here, right? You can see his leg is on the pointing towards his own goal line. He swung that leg over to gain that extra roll to get himself over try line. That, in my opinion, is not in my opinion. That is illegal, and because that happened before Morby, illegally stopped the try, that should have prevented the penalty try. It should have been a penalty for the extra roll, and then Josh Morby should have been stayed on the field for because that roll happened before he illegally stopped the try. Should have been the yellow card should have been cancelled out. Okay, let me know your thought. That is actually, in my opinion, the correct interpretation. I think the referee got that whilst got the Morby part correctly, but he fails to see that there was an extra roll, which would have made that an illegal move before the illegal stoppage of the try from Josh Morby. So that's my interpretation there. But anyway, let's move on to some of the other stuff. So yeah, this All Black team had a lot of issues. Scrum, line out, just it's this is like something that the team needs to really look at. Albeit a B side, it should not be. This is should not really fall that part behind. There were some defensive issues as well. Some of the tackles, there were some disconnections with the tackle with the rush defense. Players getting caught almost like in no man's land every now and then, leading into some of the tries from the Stormers. Once again, the All Blacks decided to not pursue a static kicking game. So there was a lot of dynamic kicking. There was no like box kicking, setting up for big long box. Like, not that many anyway. I don't know if there were very few like dynamic set up static box kicking. So it was more dynamic kicking. I think it was quite a bit of dynamic kicking from Stormers as well, right? Especially with Mr. Bowden Barrett on the field. With so many kicking, he's like he's got like one of those what do they call it? One of those what do you call it? The what is it? Charcuterie, one of those charcuterie, boards where there's more variety. His kicking game than one of those meat platter boards you get at the parties. But the problem with his like the kicking, the variety that Bowden Barrett has is that his teammates are not on the same page to follow those through. There was a number of clever kicks or crossfield kicks, just quite didn't have the players to follow through for the Bowden Barrett to really make it. It kind of looked like a wasted opportunity. I think that it just really comes down to not really prepared for his own teammates for that. There was a couple of dynamic kicking from the Stormers as well, little chips over the top that kind of played out for them. The high ball was just very messy from both teams. There wasn't much of a almost like there was the ball hit the ground way too many times for some reason from those high balls. So I'm not sure what's going on there. There was a what do you call it? There was a bit of a lack of commitment to the breakdown from the All Blacks, in my opinion. Now this is how they like to kind of play it against the Irish, because the Irish wasn't committing to challenge the breakdown. As a result, the All Blacks was trying to just send maybe one or two players in the breakdown to get that ball out quickly, and then quickly try to recycle the game and try to keep the tempo up. But because the fact that the Stormers actually contested the breakdown quite heavily, the All Blacks' lack of commitment to the breakdown, like the same style they play against Ireland, really caused a bit of problem for them. They were giving away quite a few turnovers and also quite a few penalties as a result of that. The penalty was really high against the All Blacks, in addition to the scrum and the set piece penalty. So that's something that again you're gonna have to work on heading into the game against the Springboks. For the Stormers, I thought they were just really physical, really flat. Flat physical rugby, nothing too fancy. A couple of clever kicks here and there, and then just really physically found it up in the 4-pack and tried to assert that dominance against the All Blacks. I think ultimately, if the Stormers could just wear down the All Blacks pack with that physicality, they've actually contributed. They've actually building towards a favorable result in that first Test match by wearing down the All Blacks team in that fashion as well. There were a bunch of yellow cards against the All Blacks. There was a high tackle from Anthony Leonard-Brown. There was a yellow card for Parker for that Maul. And I think there might be another one at the end, but there was quite a bit of discipline issues there as well. So anyway, let's have a look at the match stats of the game. 6 tries to 3. The game was pretty close. It was just 7 points to 7 for like 35 minutes. It looked like the All Blacks might lose this one. Meters until the second half, the reserves came on before they actually put away. 36 run meters to the All Blacks, 361 for Stormers, 141 carries for the All Blacks, 98 for the Stormers, 29 defenders beating for the All Blacks, 20 for the Stormers. Not too much difference there. 7 clean breaks to 5, not too much difference as well. 173 passes to 118, so a lot more passes for the All Blacks. They tried to keep the ball alive, which was a very clear strategy they tried to do. 12 offloads to the 10 for the All Blacks. Turnovers conceded 15 against the All Blacks, 13 against the Stormers. A lot of possession inside their own half here, just between the 22 to the 50. The All Blacks was happy to run the ball from pretty much any part of the field. They weren't that keen on digging into that kicking game there. So let's have a look at the defense. 20 missed tackles out of 120 for the All Blacks, 151 for the Stormers, 29 missed tackles, quite high there for the Stormers there. Not too much else to say. What else is here? Got some kicking. 15 kicks in play and 16 for the Stormers, 15 for the All Blacks. Pretty low in terms of kicking count. Sometimes these games, even at Super Rugby level, you will see like 20 to 30 kicks. So this is really low for both teams. So conversion accuracy as well is pretty good for Beauden Barrett. And then Jacobs came on in the second half, missed a couple and really brought that conversion rate down. There was one drop goal attempt before halftime for the Stormers, but it wasn't to be. Breakdown. Rucks won 96.9% to 97.2%. So the All Blacks actually was behind in terms of the rucks. They lost 3 out of 2 of their own rucks. So yeah, this is again something that I thought the lack of commitment at the breakdown was hurting them a little bit there for the All Blacks, because they had that same strategy against Ireland there. Lineouts, this was horrendous. The more defense was horrendous, but the lineout itself was okay. 4 lineouts lost for the Stormers, which is good for the All Blacks. They did a good job disrupting their 100% for their own throw. Scrums, 2 scrums lost for the Stormers. Is this correct? Is this actually correct? I felt like the Stormers have. I thought the All Blacks surely lost one there, or maybe not. But yeah, the Stormers definitely had a scrum dominance. A lot of penalties were given out for the Stormers in the first half. Maybe it was on their mostly for their own feet, maybe. And then finally, the discipline. 16 penalties considered for the All Blacks. That is really, really bad. 3 yellow cards. 11 for the Stormers, so much better there. So this is something that I think the All Blacks has once again needs to work with, especially going to that first test match. Anyway, let's do a quick recap on the summary of the game before this gets too far out of hand in terms of how do I say this? Overview. Okay. Anyway, just let's have a quick go through this. So yeah, the All Blacks gets the first try on the board. 5 minutes in the game, they had a line out, went for a more, just nicely went through. Takiaho 7 points to 0. 12 minutes, Anton Leonard-Brown gets the yellow card for high shot. 13 minutes, there was a more try from Stormers that we saw there. That was denied. And then there was a yellow card against Simon Parker. And then they went for another more and then scored this one for the Stormers. 7 points to 7. And then the game stalled. Neither team were able to score for a very long time. It's 37 minutes. There was line out that was stolen by the All Blacks. And Rico ran through a nice little gap. There was a penalty. Quick tap for the All Blacks. Spread the ball out wide to Simon Parker in the corner. Well, not Simon Parker. I think it was, what's his name? Daryl. I think it was Daryl into the corner for a quick try. 14 points to 7, half time. Second half, 55 minutes. Dion Fourie is just absolutely outstanding at almost 30 years of age. He gets a turnover for a penalty. The Stormers went for the lineout. The lineout came down. He gets the ball at the end of the lineout. Gets a pass from the pop down from the end and he gets the ball popped down to him at the end of the lineout. And there's a disconnect with the defense where the lineout is here and then the defenders are coming up from the back line. And that little disconnect between the two lines is where Dion Fourie passed the ball to, I think it was Gelant. Ran through the gap for the try for the Stormers. Beautiful. So this was one of the most beautiful tries, off the whole night. He runs through for the try, 14 points to 14, and the scoreboard is deadlocked with 25 minutes left. Yeah, 67. Looked like Ratama knocked on, but the referee on the field was pretty adamant that it was knocked back in the ruck, and they just played on. A few more phases later, Riku Ioane gets the ball out wide. He see a gap in front of him. There was a tackle, and then he picked out the ball from the ruck, just ran straight through for the try. 14 points to 21. 73 minutes. Once again, this was a ball kind of went wide midfield. This was 50 something meter out. Peter Larkai gets the ball from a pass from I think it was from Carter. Not Carter, from Jacob. He runs through the gap, and then the backflip past the Carter out on the wing. Carter step backs in field and he bumps over a defender, ran through for the try. 33 points to 14. Sorry, 28 points to 14. And then 75 minutes, 2 minutes later, another stolen line out for the All Blacks. The ball was kicked down the field, and then the Stormers players gets the ball and try to kick it back. And it was charged down by Josh Morby. I think it was Josh Morby, but it was charged down. But Josh Morby scooped this one up, ran in for the try. 44 points to 33. And the 79 minutes, this was the penalty try, we just saw right here, which I think that is the wrong decision. But anyway, Josh Morby gets sent off a yellow card, penalty try, 21 points to 33. And then finally, just on the 80th minute mark, the All Blacks had a penalty. Wants to finish up on the high, kick the ball out, went for the Maul. And Asafo Amoa peels off on the Maul, rams through for the try. 21 points to 38, the final score. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys later tonight for the Wallaby game. Better watch that. And then we've got the Springboks against Argentina tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching. See you guys. Cheers.